Hello and welcome back. My name is Liam, and this is Code Spells. We're still playing in version 0.202C, very early alpha, beta version early access game on Steam. And today we're going to be playing in the sandbox mode in the code creator. Well, this is, but in the spell creator screen. Last time we looked at making a challenge and playing around in the worlds and just creating a very simple sandbox mode, so what I'm just going to do is do that again. So I said the code creator. It's effectively what the spell creator is. This game was originally created as a way to teach kids on how to program and how to get into making software. I am a software developer, so I know how to program already, so I'm just going to be using the graphical side today. I don't think there is a way of actually changing the code of the spells, but not within the game anyway. So yeah, let's get into it. But I think the idea of being able to learn to program and have fun with spells and kind of pretend like you're creating magic is really, really good. In fact, you're not pretending, you are creating magic. So I'm just gonna pop open the spell wheel here by pressing tab, then going over to the left and clicking on this button. So in here you can see the controls, which is very helpful. You can also see on the left hand side here the sandbox, the spell book, sorry, not the sandbox. And you can check. This is where you can select which spells you want to use. So you saw me use this last time. What you may not have noticed is at the top here there's a create new button, which allows you to create a new spell. So I'm going to just go into the fire spell book. As you can see, I have an extra spell that you won't have in the main game called balling. Just playing around, making sure it still worked, and kind of getting an idea for what I was going to do this episode. So I'm just going to delete that now, and I'm going to then add or create a new spell. So when you click that button, you'll see on the right hand side a new kind of spell creation box is shown to you. To make this full screen, or as much as full screen as you can, if you come down to the bottom here and click on this button here, right here, it will then make it full screen, which is very useful. The button next to that will actually show you the code, which there isn't any because we haven't done any programming, although I'd expect there to be some in there. So let's just make it go non-full screen. Yes, okay, that's interesting. When you do actually create a spell, I have seen the code in there, so I don't know why it's not showing in there right now, but yes. You can also click the plus button to zoom in the whole of the UI. I don't know if that's a good decision or not. And you can press minus to make it really tiny. So I'm just going to make it somewhat a reasonable size so you on YouTube can read it. Yeah, that looks fine for me. So I'm just gonna. So you can click and drag on the grey space to kind of move everything around. You can click on each of these individual bits and move them around. Doesn't really matter where you put them in here. I think if you put some things above each other, the way the code is written, they'd appear in that order, but that's not a massive issue. You can also attach and detach these, so you can see when I'm going to reattach it, it's got this yellow line telling you where it's going to go. So if I came and brought it down here, I could put it below there, or I could put it above there. So, and obviously you can move this one around as well. You can right click on things, and you can duplicate them, which is copying and pasting them. You can add a comment, which is useful for when you get into the reading of the code. You can read what things are there for to do, and leave yourself little tiny messages that don't affect anything to do with the spell. So if you're a programmer, you would know what a comment is in code. A comment is just a really quick message to you as the creator or somebody else reading your spell to know what you were intending, or just a quick message to say why something's there. You can disable the block, so that will mean that this would never happen, so it effectively makes it a comment. We can enable the block again, so you can use it. You can see you can delete the block. Well, you're actually going to be deleting 2 blocks here because there's another one inside. So if I went and select this and deleted that first, it would only delete that block. Okay, so I am actually going to delete this one here. So we're going to have. So you can see here on creation of the spell or the orb. They're all called orbs. The game sets the speed of the orb, so you can tell it to stop, so it'll just exist, or you can tell it to be slow, medium, or fast. I'm going to say stop. So we're just going to create a ball of magic. It won't do anything; it'll just exist, and that'll be our first spell. We can name the spell up here by clicking on this name here and selecting it. So you can click and select certain bits of it, or you can select all of it. You can press Ctrl A to select all of it. So we're going to call this spell 1, and that'll be our first spell. So when you click the tick on the bottom, you'll instantly get the spell. So if I just click, it'll create the ball. It creates a little bit in front of you, which is useful. So you can see we're just creating spells. Now these will disappear over time, I believe. I don't know of any other way to get rid of them, other than you can tell it in the code creator to destroy them at certain points, but we'll get into that in a minute. There you go, it disappears after a bit of time. So while that's going on, I'm going to press tab and then click on here. I believe you can press escape to get there quicker actually, but anyway, so I'm going to come back to the spell 1, and because I've created this one, you'll notice that there's a slight difference in the colour between this one and this one. So because this is kind of a lighter grey, it means I can edit it. The pre-created ones you can't delete or edit, but that's fine, that's good. Spell 1 then, I can come back in here, I'm going to make it full screen again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this. So yeah, remember it's early access, so there's going to be some graphical bugs in here. I can click on the controls and we can have a look at what we got here. So we can on create, so we've already got one of them. There's on actions, that's when you press the F key. There's call function, which we'll get into when we start making more complicated spells. Repeat function, so you can tell a function to be called many times per second. The call function has a delay on it if you want. Destroy orb as well. So I think on the action we're going to get to destroy orb, just so we have a quicker way of getting rid of our spell when we don't want it. Oop. The interface isn't the most responsive in the world right now, but that's okay. I can forgive that. So now if we cast our spell and then I step back and press the F key, it's destroyed. That's so simple, so easy. So if I press escape here, then go back to the fire, open our spell up again. So what else can we do? So the controls we've kind of gone over. We'll come back to some of the other things in here, like the call function stuff, because we haven't got to the function side of things, so we don't really need to. Movement, so we can set the speed. So we saw that we already have that, so we don't really need to do that again. Go back into movement. We can say it can orbit the player, that's pretty cool. So I believe this will be useful for when you're playing the online version, so you can shoot a spell at somebody, you can hit them, it can orbit them, and then do some explosion or something like that. That'd be quite a cool spell. Like, you get hit by a spell and you're like, what's going to happen now? And it explodes suddenly after a certain amount of time. Or you can tell it to orbit the creator, so this could be a defensive spell. So you could have it like orbit the player and explode when it hits a creature or something. Break orbit, so you can tell it to orbit and then press the F key and it would shoot off in the direction it was currently in. So you could have like AoE attacks and things going on. Lock orbit to player, lock target, look at target. Yeah, there's all sorts you can do. Unlock orbit from player, rotation, turn orb, so you can tell the orb to actually spin itself when it's not round a player but round itself. You can set the orb's rotation. Now there's random there, it's currently selected, but you can change that value. Look at player. So yeah, quite a lot there. So there's life. I've not really figured out what these two are yet, so I haven't been able to use them. But I have a feeling they're like the internal values of the system. So you can say, right, how long's my orb existed for, and should it still exist? And whether or not what the distance from the player is. So it's useful information to know. Remaining mana, so you can tell whether or not it should exist and do stuff with mana. So yeah. Interestingly, you can actually set the air mana from this as well. So it's good to know. You can set the colour. So I'm going to actually bring this in. So when we create it, we want it orb to be the colour. I think let's choose a colour that's not normally used in the game, of pink, or purpley pink. So now when I create my orb, it's no longer yellow but pink, kind of like a translucent pink. So you can see right through it. Yeah. So if I press F again, get rid of that. Let's go back in here. Let's open up the spell. Now, if I click on here, yeah, there we go. That's what I was expecting to see earlier. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, you can see in here that's kind of like, well, this is code. It is programming code. I would say that this is very JavaScript-esque kind of code. It's not exactly JavaScript, but it's almost, if not, it's kind of JavaScript plus a little bit of extra stuff going on in the background. The interesting thing is that that's quite useful to use if you get like some code in here that can never finish. It will bring up a kind of nice icon down the bottom here, which would be like red, and it will kind of give you an idea of like why your spell won't work. When that happens, your spell in this list here will go red. So that will give you an idea of why it's not working. So in the properties menu, yeah, we're done there. So if we go to the powers menu, we can set the orbit temperature, set orbit temperature. So this is where you can change like humidity and heat. So like the add heat and remove heat spells we saw last time. Use this. There's the explosion spell that we saw last time that used the explosion power. So I kind of talked about that. I imagine this is somewhat configurable. I haven't really figured out how this works, but I suppose we can have a play. So I'd expect at some point you can maybe make this less powerful. As you saw there, if I click and drag a certain bits of the code out of the chain, it will bring the whole chain that's below it with it, which is useful to know. So now, when our spell finishes, when we press the F key, before it's destroyed, it'll explode, which is really cool. So if we fire this now, boom. So not a spell you want to be stood next to when it goes off. But that's really cool, so you could leave some like traps around for your enemies, and then boom. I think this is amazing. This is really cool. And if you like, what we've done, we've added maybe 6 things, and we've got a spell that has a different colour. It stood still, and it explodes, and then just disappears. Like so easy, so easy. There's also a cast orb with spell, so you can. I think this is so you can get it to cast other spells. I haven't really played around with that too much, so I'll leave that for another episode. On hit, so now if our orb was moving, we could have it do some other things. I'm not going to get that to happen right now. There's also communication, so when you press the F key, you can tell it to like say something to the world, so if there's other things around it or like other spells that are going on, you can like kind of have them go off and do other things. Broadcast message. So there's 3 different layers of broadcast message. So there's 20 meters, 75 meters, and 150 meters. On message received, so if an orb receives a message, it will do something. So this would be a good way of like being able to chain spells and like have different effects happen. So maybe we'll play with that at another point, but that'd be really cool. I don't know what this one would be used for. I guess that's just like a... Yeah, I don't really get what that's for. I did notice there was a help tag there actually. I wonder if we click on that if it tells us. No. Oh, it did, down here. So you can see the error thing here, which gives you some kind of debug information. Okay. For non-programmers, that might be a little bit too technical, I don't know. Like I say, I am a programmer, so I can understand that, but some people might not be able to. It's fine. It's not your job to have to understand that. So yeah, I'm just going to delete this block. I don't really know what that one's meant to do. So we get into the logic tab here. So in the logic tab, there's an if section. So this allows you to say if something is true or false, or certain things are set in certain ways, do some action. Then there's an else part here, so you can do if this is true, then do this, otherwise do something else. And then there is finally an if else, so you can keep chaining them. So you can say, right, if my orb is alive for 10 seconds, do something. My orb is alive for 30 seconds, do something else. If my orb is been alive for a minute, destroy it, maybe, I don't know. That's kind of the idea of that. In the Boolean, so Boolean is the thing you would use with the if statement to figure out whether or not something is true or not, or if a value is set to a certain thing, or it's really useful. So here you can see we can say where one value is equal to another. This also has quite a few options, like not equal, less than or equal to, greater than and equal to. So you're very simple maths, but very useful to have, and you can do quite a lot with just having that on its own. But then there's also the and or statement here. So you can do kind of, if my orb has been alive for 10 seconds and is green, then do something, and this would be what would allow you to do that. So let me destroy that. There's also the not, so that basically allows you to say this shouldn't be true. So if my orb has been not been around for 10 seconds, so if it's less than 10 seconds, it should be another way of writing that, but maybe the not is easier to use, and it is green, then do something, or is not green, then do something. You can have true and false. I believe this will be able to change it too. Yep. So that's just a really quick way of just having true and false in the thing. So you could say if something is equal to true. Don't know what you'd be doing to do that, but it's there if you need it. There's null, which means it doesn't mean 0. Kinda means 0, but not really. 0 is a value in programming, so you can't like use 0 to say there's nothing of something. So you say null, which means there's never been anything. This value never, like, there's nothing in here. It's an empty box effectively. If it had a value in it, it would be 0, maybe. But it's because 0 is a number. But if you have no numbers, what do you have? Well, you have null. That's what null is. Then there's test. If true, if false. So I believe this would be useful for being able to like write an if statement effectively. You'll notice that if you hover over them, sometimes you get like a tiny tooltip, which will help you if you don't know what you're doing. Then there's the repeat 10 times, which you can change the number in here to be any number. This will mean that something will happen more than once. So in our destroy action here, if we move that and do that, our explosion will happen now 10 times, supposedly. So it didn't, but that's kind of the idea, is that it would. I don't know why that didn't, but yeah. Anyway, the idea is that it would repeat over and over 10 times. I don't think the game's got the repeating logic quite right. For me, anyway, it doesn't feel right, and you can't do what's called recursion, but that's not very easily anyway, and it doesn't particularly like the fact that it doesn't end, so I guess that's a design decision, but yeah, it's something I'd like. Recursion is when something calls itself, so I could have a thing that said explode, and then right at the end call the thing that says to explode again and again and again, just keep exploding, which is a very useful programming technique, but not possible really in here. So also we've got the repeat while here, so then on the end we could do the kind of the same as what we would do with an if statement. We can add things that would say if some value is set to a certain thing or other circumstances. You can say while or until. So while would say while something is a certain colour. So while my orb is green, do these things. Or while my orb has existed for only 10 seconds, do a certain thing. Until says until my orb has existed for 10 seconds, do a certain thing. So that's very useful. I just pressed the delete key on my keyboard there to get rid of that. Then there's maths. So in the maths tab, you can do all sorts of mathematics. I haven't actually seen all of these. So you can have a number, just a number, which is useful for when you're writing like multiplication, things like that, which you can do with this next one. So this allows you to add, subtract, times, divide, and I believe that's square root, or like the root symbol. In here we can do square root. We can also go absolute. Sorry, the other value there was not square root, but to the power of. That's the one. Absolute. So that would give you, if you had like a decimal of 5.2, it would probably round it down to 5. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I imagine it would give you 5. Then you've got I think that's a dot, so I don't know what that does. In log 10, so you can do all sorts of mathematics anyway. Some of them you probably would never use. You've got your tangent, sine and cosine in there. You've got your pi, e, I can't remember that one is, square root again, square root half, and infinity. So you can do an infinite loop effectively, I think, with that. So you can check if a value is even or odd. Odd, if it's prime, whole, positive, negative, divided by. divisible by, which then gives you a different answer. Okay, yeah. So you can do all sorts. You can do encryption with that, and quite a lot. Change. See, this is where you can change a certain value to a variable, which is a box for a value, and you can change it by a certain amount. So this would change item by 1, so it would add 1 to item. I haven't been able to use this one particularly well when I've been playing around with the spell creator, because the compiler, or the thing that makes the spell work, isn't able to like convert a number to a number. It's weird. If you read the code, it should work, but it doesn't. So just a note to the developer. Round, so you can like the absolute, but you can round just in either direction. So that would take the closest number, like the closest integer value, which is a whole number, or you can round up, which will always go to the highest number. So if you have 5.5, it'll go to 6 rather than going down to 5, which I believe round would probably go down to 5. And you can round down, which would do the same. It would go down to 5 rather than 6. We've also got in here some list, so you can give a list of numbers. You can also get a min and a max, an average, median, modes, standard, deviant, and random items. So you can have list of numbers and or a list of colours maybe, or something. Just you can do some very interesting things with that. See, it's very hard to describe this process, because it's all very creative and you can do almost anything. You just got to think about how to get from a very basic thing to a very complicated thing, and figure out what steps you need to do to be able to do that. It's very, very good. It's the ultimate puzzler, really. What else have we got in here? We've got remainder of, constraint, random integer from, so you can get a random number from 1 to 100, and random fraction. Random fraction. Not fractal, that's a different thing. Debug, so you can evaluate, which would basically tell you whether or not your thing is going to run, or it would run it. I'm not too sure on what that would do, but yes. The debug also has this, which allows you to leave a comment. So you can just put a message into the graphical programmer here. And it doesn't connect into anything, so you can just leave it. I don't think it does anyway, no. I think you can just put some text in here as well, and use it as part of the thing. So I'm just going to remove that anyway. Then you've got variables, so you can set the value of a variable, so I could set item to be 0.2 or something. You can also create a value, so if I create this, and then you can do remove variable, or you can do a new variable. When you do that, you get asked for a name, so I did test, and then clicked done. You can see test is now in my list. Also got rid of item. I don't know why it does that, but yes. And this one allows you to actually use the value that's inside of that box for the value. You can also then set the value, so item could become thing. So you see, when I got rid of the variable, it also deleted it from the list because it wasn't being used. It'd be nice if it left it around until I said I was finished, but oh well, it's not a massive issue. So you can see here we're in the functions list, so you can have a function that just does something. So you can name it something like, I don't know, best function, and then you can have it do things like this in here, and then using the call function, let me just scroll over there, then using the mathematics I can add in this value into there, and say after 3 seconds of pressing the F key, it will then go and run the destroy method of best function. And there we go. So that will then, when we cast our spell, we press the F key. There we go. So fire the spell, press the F key, 1, 2, 3, and explode. There we go. So it takes a little bit of a few seconds, gives you a bit of time just to plant your spell and run away. That's kind of what I'd use that for. Also in the functions tab here, you can see that there is there's one that returns a value, so you can have variables in here and do all sorts of mathematics and things. If you click on the star of this, you can say there's an input name, and you can have inputs. So you can say which values should be put, like which values you can put into the method. Haven't really played around using that yet, but there's some use in that. So you can pass different values in, like the time that something existed, if and things like that. There's an if, then return. That's just a very quick way of writing an if statement, I guess. And then you can actually just say, right, the function. So I can tell it to just on create now. So when I cast the spell, it runs our function, and destroys itself. And I killed myself by firing the spell. It's not a friendly spell. So just get myself back over here using the teleport spell. I then go back into the fire, choose spell 1. There we go. Yeah, so I think that's a quick overview of the spell creator. If you have any ideas on what you want to actually see, like a spell you want me to try and create, or an idea of a spell you want to try and create, please leave a comment down below. And thank you for watching. I shall see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. And don't forget to leave your comments down below on what you would like to see a spell created of. Bye!